Welcome to demonstration of IELTS Learning Courseware. IELTS Learning Courseware will prepare your students to take the IELTS academic tests with confidence. You will have immediate access to over 80 hours of interactive instructions and practice materials covering each of the 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading and writing. IELTS Learning Courseware consists of pre-recorded lectures containing videos, infographics, audios, pictures and animated objects. These are accompanied by a wide variety of authentic IELTS-style exercises and interactive activities that provide focused practice of the skills, strategies and techniques that students need to perform at their best. Our innovative IELTS Learning Courseware preparation course has been designed and written by experienced English teaching professionals from the University of Queensland, an IELTS testing centre and British Council, and experienced instructors of IELTS. We have annotated the content in the constructive order covering students of basic, intermediate and proficient level. Each part of this course includes engaging prezi-based presentations reviewing key test-taking skills, strategies and techniques. These are accompanied by a wide variety of authentic IELTS-style exercises and interactive activities that provide focused practice of the skills, strategies and techniques. What makes IELTS Learning Courseware different from conventional method? IELTS Learning Courseware is categorized into 3 parts. 1. Basic analysis. 2. Smart orientations. 3. Regular practice. First part is basic analysis, which is standard English learning courseware. It is an additive brush-up courseware which is primarily meant for weak students. Here basic analysis part covers topics from basic grammar to phonetics lectures. The video lectures are based on standard English which is followed worldwide. Practice consists of IELTS-based descriptive speaking, reading, writing and listening basics.
Standard English is any form of the English language that is accepted as a national norm in a particular English-speaking country. The whole system and structure of a language or of languages in general, usually taken as consisting of syntax and morphology and sometimes also phonology and semantics.
Let's start with grammar, one of the key concepts underlying this MOOC. What does the word grammar mean to you? Glamor's probably not the first word that you think of when you hear the word grammar, but one of the grammar experts whom we interviewed for this MOOC, Professor Fred D'Agostino, talks about the glamour of grammar. He explains how both words are derived from the word for learning, as in grammar schools. Grammar and glamour are essentially the same word, derived from the Greek grammatikos, meaning of letters, which covered the whole of arts and letters. In the Middle Ages, grammar generally meant learning, which in the popular imagination included a knowledge of magic. So grammar has origins that are glamorous and magical. The narrowing of grammar to mean the rules of language came late in the 17th century to the study of English, and in the 19th century, the words went their separate ways. If you'd like to listen to Professor D'Agostino, you will find the video clip in our course resources. It's quite usual for people to speak and write correctly without knowing the explicit rules of grammar. So when you're studying grammar, you're studying what you may already know. You all have an intuitive command of grammar because you've been using it since you started to talk. But you also need a conscious command of the rules so that you can apply them to your writing. Grammar is the underlying system of rules of a language. When you study what the language can and can't do, you're studying grammar. Categorising and labelling the words in a sentence using the parts of speech, as traditional grammarians do, isn't always reliable, however. In this MOOC, we'll introduce you to the traditional parts of speech, what contemporary linguists call word classes, and concentrate on helping you to understand the function of each word in a sentence, that is, its role and how it relates to the other words. Another term that you need to be familiar with is syntax. It's the arrangement and interrelations among words in a sentence, the structure of the sentence. No one starts at zero. You already have a good intuitive sense of grammar, but you need to be able to pinpoint what makes a piece of writing work or not work. You'll benefit greatly from a grounding in grammar. A knowledge of grammar will provide you with a wonderful toolkit that will give you greater confidence and greater power over your writing. The novelist Philip Pullman, in an article in The Guardian, says that taking care of the tools means developing the faculty of sensing when we're not sure about a point of grammar. We don't have to know infallibly that we might have got it wrong, because then we can look it up and get it to work properly. Sometimes we're told that this sort of thing doesn't matter very much. If only a few readers recognise and object to unattached participles, for example, and most readers don't notice and sort of get the sense anyway, why bother? I discovered a very good answer to that, and it goes like this. If people don't notice when we get it wrong, they won't mind if we get it right. And if we do get it right, we'll please the few who know and care about these things, so everyone will be happy. The following experts have been very outspoken about the value of knowing grammar rules. The journalist Dot Wordsworth says, "It's cruel not to teach grammar to children." Harry Mount says, "If you don't know grammar, you can't write English." He goes on to say, "Know your grammar and you can produce every kind of fantastic verbal construction and, this is the crucial bit, be understood." The jazz musician Charles Mingus, talking about jazz, says, "You've got to know all the rules and structures inside out before you start to break them and make truly great music." You need to understand the rules of grammar so that you know when it's okay to break them. Writing teacher Richard Weaver says, "Using a language may be compared to riding a horse. Much of one's success depends upon an understanding of what it can and will do." Knowing grammar can make you into a truly great writer. The basis of grammatical awareness is sentence sense, and this comes with reading. Poor writers cannot or do not read their own writing accurately or perceptively. They lack a reader's perspective. You need to read widely. Read, 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 just like the grammar goblin. Wide reading, particularly of authors who write very well, will help you to absorb a great deal about grammatical, syntactical and punctuation patterns in the craft of writing. The better we understand English, the greater our pleasure in reading it. If you're already confident about your writing, reading syntactically challenging writing can be helpful too. Find a piece of writing that you admire and try to analyse why it works for you. Understanding grammar and syntax will help you to do this. Do you agree with Dot Wordsworth's comment that it's cruel not to teach grammar to children? Post your comments below. If you're at university or school, you know how important writing is to your academic progress. Once you graduate, you'll learn that the work
IELTS consists of video lectures giving real-life experience for IELTS for speaking, reading, writing and listening presented in the form of PTESOL, which is self-explanatory and high in virtual methodology. Number of software presentation will be 7 to 10 44 hours where speaking have 4 PTESOL including 45 videos. Reading have 2 PTESOL including 35 videos. Listening have 1 PTESOL including 40 videos. Writing have 2 PTESOL including 45 videos. You can check 10-minute sample in the next slide. Speaking module will consist of following data with a handbook printed with your logo. Handbook can be given to your students where you can embed your logo in the paper too. Handbook will be in the form of PDF and is printable.
Firstly, speaking introduction will be explained starting from speaking format, speaking parts and speaking scoring criteria. In 11 to 14 minutes you have discussion with the certified examiner. It is interactive and as close to a real-life situation as a test can get.
I'm sure you're curious to find out as much as possible about the IELTS speaking test. So why don't we begin by looking at the format of the speaking test? In the IELTS speaking test, there is one candidate, that will be you, and one examiner. The test is between 11 and 14 minutes long. The complete test is recorded onto a recording device in case your performance needs to be checked by another examiner. There are 3 parts in the IELTS speaking test, and each of the different parts gives you a chance to use a range of speaking skills. Now let's talk about how the speaking test is assessed. The examiner will assess your speaking ability in 4 areas. Firstly, fluency and coherence. What exactly do these mean? Well, fluency means how well you can speak continuously without needing to stop. And coherence means how clearly you organize and join your ideas together when you speak. Secondly, lexical resource. This means using a range of vocabulary to express your ideas clearly. Thirdly, your grammatical range and accuracy. This means how well you can use English grammar. And finally, pronunciation. Now, let's talk about part 1 of the speaking test. In part 1, you and the examiner introduce yourselves. The examiner checks your identity document, usually your passport, and then the examiner asks you some questions about familiar topics, such as work or study, family, the place where you live, or maybe things that you do in your free time. This section of the test lasts between 4 to 5 minutes. Let's take a look at what you can expect in part 1.
Good afternoon, my name's Stephen.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell me your full name, please?
My name is Priya Long.
Thank you. What shall I call you?
Please call me Priya.
Can I see your identification, please, Priya?
Sure, here's my passport.
Thank you, that's fine. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Do you work or are you a student?
Well, at the moment I'm still studying.
Now I'll talk about part 2 of the speaking test. In this part, the examiner will give you a task card containing a topic and some points to speak about. You will then have 1 minute to prepare and make some notes to use when you are speaking. After this minute of preparation, you need to speak about the topic for 1 to 2 minutes. The examiner will just listen to you. Let's look at an example of part 2.
Thank you. Now, in this part of the test, I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you start, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand what you have to do?
Yes.
Here's some paper and a pencil for making notes, and here is your topic. I'd like you to describe a memorable trip. Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes. I'll stop you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Okay, one trip that really stands out in my memory is a camping holiday I did in North Queensland in summer of 2014.
Finally, let's look at part 3 of the speaking test. In part 3, the examiner asks the candidate some more abstract questions related to the topic that was introduced in part 2. So, for example, if you had to talk about a memorable trip that you took in part 2, then the questions in part 3 will be related to the theme of travel and tourism. But the questions will not ask about your own experiences, but instead will be more abstract. This part of the speaking test lasts 4 to 5 minutes. Let's see some examples of the kind of questions you can expect in part 3.
We've been talking about a memorable trip, and I'd like to discuss with you 1 or 2 more general questions related to this. Let's consider first of all the way that people travel. How is the way people travel today different from the way they travelled 100 years ago?
Well, there have been enormous changes. I suppose one of the biggest influences has been the development of air transport.
So now you have some basic information. But remember, although these facts are important background knowledge, there's a lot more to learn, which will help you do well in the IELTS speaking test.
Marking and assessment of the IELTS. The IELTS 9-band scoring system is used to measure and report scores in a consistent manner. Examiners are trained in line with globally agreed standards to ensure consistency in the quality of their assessment. Scores are reported in whole and half bands. Score range is 9 maximum to 0 minimum. Scores are reported in whole and half bands. Detailed performance descriptors, assessors have been developed which describe spoken performance at the 9 IELTS bands. There are 4 descriptors in speaking which have equal weightiness in the speaking test. This criterion refers to the ability to talk with normal levels of continuity, rate and effort, and to link ideas and language together to form coherent, connected speech. The key indicators of fluency are speech rate and speech continuity. The key indicators of coherence are logical sequencing.
Practice test creation as per the demand of your teachers.